So in today's video, what I'm going to show is how to install a dash cam in both a Mercedes 250 CLA 2018 as well as a 2012 Mazda 3. I'm actually going to split these into two videos, but the particular dash cam that we're working with today is the MyGekoGear Orbit 950 dual dash cam. This is actually the third unit I've purchased. I've been really happy with this in my Dodge Durango, mainly because it's good value for money. Quality of the footage is amazing both during the day and at night. And the one thing I really like about this particular unit is that that it comes with both the front-facing camera as well as the rear-facing camera. Install this out of the box, straight into the vehicle. It's a really straightforward installation using the cigarette lighter power adapter that comes with it. But today, what I'm going to show you is actually how to hardwire this particular unit into both vehicles using this DashCam Hardwire kit that I got from Amazon. It was about $23 Canadian, but it includes everything that you need to do to do a hardwire install. That way it's nice and clean, and you can free up your cigarette lighter, obviously, to charge other devices. To an in-depth review of this video is really more about how to install the unit, but just to show you what comes in the package here. So you get a quick user manual guide, the camera itself, pretty decent size on the actual screen itself. And then you'll see these are the buttons to use the camera. When you actually switch it on, there are labels here that will tell you what each of the buttons do. The camera unit itself is actually fixed, but what is adjustable is actually the lens itself. So there's a fairly decent range of motion there, and you'll see when we get it installed that you can adjust this based on the positioning on your windshield. Next thing is, of course, the rear camera. This is a tiny little unit here. Both mounts, this actually comes pre-mounted with some 3M tape. And so then this goes onto the rear glass. This is actually the mount itself that goes onto your windshield, and you'll see that there's the USB adapter as well. This is where the rear camera plugs in as well. So that this remains fixed. Camera slots into it, and then, like I say, you can adjust the lens to get the best field of view that you want. Then next up is this box here, and then what this contains is all of your hardware kit. So what I really like about this particular camera is it does actually come with a 16 gigabyte mini SD card. It's already preloaded into to the camera there, and then you also get an adapter as well. So if you want to load it into a laptop or a PC and review your footage, you can do that. This is the wiring for the rear camera, and it basically plugs in like so. And you get quite a lot of wiring here. I have a Dodge Durango that I've already installed this into, and there was more than enough wiring, and that's a fairly long vehicle. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this is actually the cigarette lighter power adapter as well, if you want to use it straight out of the box. And it does also, this video I'm going to show you how to hardwire into a vehicle. So this is a great kit that I found on Amazon.ca. Everything that you need in order to do a hardwire. So I'll just show you everything that comes in the box here. So this is actually the wiring harness itself, and depending on the type of dash cam that you have, there are a number of different adapters. So you'll see here there's actually 2 additional adapters that come with the unit in case it doesn't fit the size of your particular dash cam or GPS. In this case, this one actually does fit my unit. And so then you have the positive power wire as well as the ground. So I'll show you how to ground that. You get a bunch of little clips here to help guide some of the cabling. And then this is what's also really neat, is they give you a bunch of different options depending on which fuse you choose and the size of the fuse as well. So we've got essentially, it looks like 5 different fuse adapters that we can plug the positive into, and we'll talk more about that when we actually go to install in the vehicle. And then lastly, they also give you some, I believe they're 5 amp fuses, again depending on the installation and the type of fuse that you're going to do. Other thing I thought was interesting is they have a little coupon here. If you leave them a positive review, they'll give you a $5 Amazon gift card. So we'll see how this all works out, and maybe we'll do that. Okay, so here we are in a 2012 Mazda 3, and we're going to install the dash cam. So I brought all of the pieces with me for this installation. First thing to do is kind of decide where you want to mount the dash cam. In this particular case, just based on having had it in, having had one in my vehicle, my preference actually is to actually not have it on the driver's side. I would recommend actually putting it on the passenger side. So you can see here when we look down at the camera itself, this is the mount, and it basically just plugs in like so, and then this goes on the dash itself. Sorry, not on the dash, on the windshield itself. So this one doesn't have a power mirror or anything, so it's a fairly straightforward installation. What I'm thinking of doing is probably mounting it somewhere just behind, so that it's not distracting to my daughter that's the driver here. So we can probably just tuck it in behind here. So one of the best things to do, just to figure out where you want to install it, is to actually use the cigarette lighter power adapter that comes with it, and just plug that in, and then we can just temporarily plug that into the camera here and get some power going to the vehicle. If I can figure out where the keys are, and then this will give us a bit of an idea in terms of what it's going to look like. So you'll see the unit is powered up now, and then we can just play around a little bit with, I don't know whether you can see that, but sort of what the footage looks like, and hopefully you can see this, but there's quite a lot of range of motion to adjust. So I'm thinking I probably want to put it right here. I don't know if you can see it better that way. That way it's sort of behind the mirror and isn't going to be distracting to the driver, yeah, and it's fairly center into the screen as well, or into the windshield. So that's where we're going to put it in. So just a good idea to use the temporary power adapter to get that going. Got too many cameras going here, so I'm confusing myself. Anyway, so we'll get going now with plugging in the rear.
Even Harrow Street's quite...
We'll go ahead and plug in the rear camera here as well, and then basically get started with wiring in. So essentially how this is going to work is we're going to wire it along the headliner around here. We're going to take it down, because the fuse box is actually, if I remember correctly, is actually in the footwell here, or behind the glove box. And then for the rear camera, we're actually going to feed that cable all the way to the back of the vehicle. You'll see that you actually get quite a lot of cable. I may have mentioned this before, that will easily fit this vehicle, so you'll actually have quite a bit of access that you'll need to tuck away, but this is the rear cable that goes to the rear camera. So let's get started with the install. So what you'll see I'm doing here is just putting a couple of cable ties just to tidy up this cable. Some of it is going to be a little bit exposed on the windshield, but we want to get this in nice and tight. It is a bit of a pain having this block here. Whether you use the hardwiring kit or not, you're still going to have to contend with that, but you can just tuck it in behind the headliner. So you get a bit of an idea as to how this is going to look. And again, we can tidy up all of this cabling later on. So again, before we commit to the final install, just want to be clear about where we're going to mount it. So I'm thinking something like that is going to work, and then we can tuck this in behind the headliner. That should be nice and tidy there. One thing I would suggest just before you do the installation is just give the area that you're looking to install a bit of a clean, so that the adhesive will stick. This car's actually had a windshield replaced fairly recently on it, so it should be nice and clean. So again, before we commit to the install, we'll maybe just switch on. Just make 100% sure we're good with the placement. Of course, in this case, I've got the actual hardwire kit plugged in, so I'm just going to temporarily take that out, put this guy in. Yeah, so this looks really good. So that's where we're going to put it. Okay, so we're just removing the 3M tape. Just get it nice and straight. And just give it a good push, and that'll stick nicely. And you can just gently pull back on the headliner. And then you should start to be able to, don't pull too hard on the headliner, but as I mentioned, you can just start tucking the cables into the headliner there. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is just put another cable tie, just keep this together. Okay, and then when we get here, just want to pull down on the rubber. You shouldn't need to remove the plastic here on the A-pillar. I've installed this on a couple of vehicles, and it should just tuck nicely around. Just use this plastic tool, get your stuff pushed in. Okay, and then at this point we want to make sure that our cable to power the unit here goes down the A-pillar towards the fuse box. And then this is the rear camera. Just make sure you got the right one. So again, here I am in the back. And I'm just gonna bring this around. Just using a plastic tool here so we don't damage anything. And then again, just pull off your rubber. Comes off, oops, comes off fairly easily on the Mazda. Let me just tuck that in. Like so. Bring this all the way around. Oops. Okay, and you'll actually see we have quite a bit of excess wire here, way more than we need. So what I'm going to do is probably just choose, about this much here to go, and then we'll just cable tie and organize the rest of this so that we can get rid of all of that excess. So let me just grab some cable ties and we'll do that now. So you'll see what I've done here is just basically tidied all of that up, and thinking we just tuck it in. This is what I've done on other vehicles, is just tuck it in down kind of behind this panel here. That just gets rid of all the excess. So this is a rear camera here. I want to make sure you take off the protective cover on the lens. And again, you'll see, you just want to mount it basically center. There's quite a bit of adjustment that can happen with that. And again, we got lots of cable. So we're going to connect up this. I don't know whether you can see it, but there's actually a little notch to make sure you've got it the right way around. So that's in tight. You just pull off the 3M tape. I just want to make sure we get this nice and center and straight. And then we'll just tuck the excess in again. In behind the headliner. We just have to get rid of all of this as well. So you actually have tons of cable. So I've installed this in a Dodge Durango, which is a fairly long truck, and tons of room to get that in. So and then that's discreetly there. You can adjust it again once you're ready. So we've got it installed, ran all the way around. So the next thing we need to tackle is to actually install and hardwire. So we'll do that next. Okay, so one thing I just realized, my bad, is that the fuse box is actually on the driver's side. So I had originally routed the cable, both cables, towards the passenger side. This is of course a North American vehicle. So anyway, so what we need to do is of course route the power cable towards the fuse box, which is over on the passenger side. So we'll follow that all the way around, and I'll meet you over on the other side. So you can get a bit of a sense here as to what it looks like as the driver. This is the rear mirror, and you can see the camera is pretty much obstructed because, again, I don't want particularly a teenage driver. My daughter is just a new driver, so I don't want her distracted by what's happening on the camera. You can make some adjustments to the camera so that the screen shuts off. My preference is to keep the screen on, but again, you don't need to be looking at the screen, so the fact that it's discreetly behind the rear view mirror is great. So again, we're just going to follow the headliner all the way across here and then get it in. You want to just watch, the airbags are fairly close, so you don't want to push it down too far. Just grab my plastic tool. And again, I'll just open up, take off the rubber housing here. And just don't want to get too close to the airbag there. Take that all the way down. to access our fuse box, use our plastic tool here. So to access our fuse box, just get in here. It's actually fairly stiff. And you can see that then gets us access to our fuse box, and we'll figure out which fuse we're going to use. We also do need to ground the cabling here. So we need to find somewhere to actually ground. I'm thinking pull the car all apart here, but I'm thinking probably behind here is somewhere we can grind, put the ground in. Yeah. So this will make a perfect ground. So we'll need to run the ground down to here, and then we'll pick out a fuse that we want to use. And again, we've got lots of cable to work with here as well. So I think we'll come down, and then we can probably wrap the excess in there. So you need a 10mm to remove the ground. Okay, so the fuses that come with the Mazda this particular year are these very short bladed fuses, and the kit that I purchased through Amazon comes with a number of different adapters. So this is the particular adapter that you want. I just did some testing, and whether you can see it here, but you have a 25, 15, 15, 15, 10, and then this last one here is unused. So we're actually going to be using that one. You do need to make sure you have 2 fuses in the adapter here in order to complete the connection. Normally you would have an existing fuse, and then you just put it in here, and then the 5-amp fuse for your dash cam itself. But in this case, we needed to put in an extra 5-amp fuse. So this is then just going to clip right in like that, and then we'll make this connection in here, and basically that's good to go. Tap that wire in. You'll see that I also tidied up some of the cabling in behind here as well, which hopefully we can just tuck in and keep out of the way. Trim pieces back in as well. Okay, that's all good there. I did notice somewhere here there's a little plastic screw that just holds that panel in. I'll deal with that afterwards. Okay, so now we've got everything in. I've just moved the mirror out of the way here. That's all wired in. All the plastic paneling is back into place. So now, of course, we'll switch the ignition on. And you see, I don't know whether you can see that, but there's a red light there, and the unit is now powering up. One last thing to do, just remove the plastic protective covering there. And then what we can do is play around with obviously the positioning of the camera. That's something that we can do as we take it out on the road and have a look there. You can also see that's the rear camera setting there. It's not too easy to see right now. I can see that there's quite a bit of the trunk showing, so I am going to adjust that. I'm not going to go through all of the features here. A couple of things I will say. All of the buttons, they have some descriptors here so that you can toggle through. It's straightforward and easy to use. There is a button here called with the padlock on. That's if you want to lock a particular clip to avoid it being re-recorded over. I have a 16 gigabyte mini SD card in here that comes with the camera itself, and that one usually gives me, with front and rear cameras at 1080p, and I think it's 30 frames per second, gives you about an hour of footage which is saved on the camera itself. You can play around with the loop recording. I have mine all set to do a 1 minute loop recording, so it'll record for a minute. That way it keeps the file size fairly small. Another thing I would point out as well is if you ever want to remove the camera from the vehicle itself, especially when you've installed it like this, just power it off. And then if you do ever have an accident, you can just simply take the camera out and retrieve the SD card. It's a lot easier to do it that way. Actually, it looks like, I think there's some protective plastic on the camera itself. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and take that out as well. So again, just to pop it back in, just make sure it's married in. You can push it right back in there. It should power up in a second here. And then again, we need to just adjust how that looks. Pretty good there. So I am going to adjust the rear camera. So hopefully you found this useful. Like I say, this is the third Geko dash cam that I've installed. I have one on my vehicle. My wife now has one installed. And then I have installed this one on my oldest daughter's vehicle. She's a new driver. Definitely as a new driver, I want to make sure that she has protection in case anything does happen. And again, with the rear view camera, sorry, the rear view mirror, you can see that it's nicely discreet there, so it won't distract her while she's driving. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, and good luck installing yours.